Welcome to Dear Business Coach, the podcast. My name's Elizabeth. Find one thing to move your business forward today with conversations, spotlights, interviews, articles, and free resources. Listen and follow and subscribe on social media. Dear Business Coach pages and groups. Dear Business Coach podcast. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, and don't forget Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, anywhere you listen to podcasts. All it takes sometimes is one little thing to move your business forward today. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so very good. All right. Good morning, Dr. Susie. How are you today?
I am fantastic, Elizabeth. How are you today?
Great. Actually, you know what? Am I addressing you properly?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So you can just call me Susie or Dr. Susie, either way.
Okay, because I just realized this week that I'm not sure why I was calling you that. I just started saying that. So Dr. Susie Castellanos-Hansley, Ph.D., science-backed stress solutions for high achievers. I have some information here or some profile details I'd like to read, if that's okay with you.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, and so listeners, I am looking at Dr. Susie's website, which is lifecoachsusie.com. And then also on LinkedIn, the About section here is really good. And Susie says, I help businesses, groups, and organizations achieve their goals with less stress through keynote speaking, workshops, and coaching. I know what it's like to want to do good work, but feel stressed out, overwhelmed, and unable to ask for help because you fear being found out or letting others down. This feeling is prevalent in smart high achievers, and that it not only burns them out, but it negatively impacts their teams, coworkers, and the enterprise goals. A first-generation Mexican-American who came from poverty and the first in my family to go to college, I spent 12 grueling years in academia, earning my Ph.D. and working as a professor. I've never felt so stressed out as I did in those years. There was no emotional support beyond the advice to fake it till you make it and never let them see you sweat. I eventually burned out and quit my tenure track job. Okay, so that is a fantastic piece of writing there. You're a very good writer. And so, Susie, would you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Well, so as Elizabeth mentioned, my name's Susie. My full name is Dr. Susie Castellanos-Hansley, PhD. And again, you can call me Susie or you can call me Dr. Susie. I'm pretty chill about those kinds of things. And as Elizabeth said, I am somebody who works with high achievers who have a lot of stress, and I help them achieve their goals with less stress. And I do that through speaking at organizations, businesses, conferences, things like that. And then also doing follow-up workshops for organizations, businesses, et cetera, who want to really help their teams work better together with less stress and more effectiveness. And I love what I do. It is something that I wish I'd had back when I was an employee or an academic. I've done a lot of different things. And I didn't know what I didn't know then, but now that I understand how stress happens and how we can become disconnected and what the way in to get past that stress and feel more connected to our teams, now that I understand how that works, it's really made a huge difference in my life. And it's such a simple science-based way that I now get to help other people, because really my mission in life is that every human being gets to fulfill their full potential without burning out and while living a life they love. And so that's really my mission, and that's why I love to speak. I like to do workshops. I also do coaching.
Wow, I have a couple of introductory questions just from reading your about section and what you were saying right now. I think that you say a science-based way to work on this, to get through the stress, to get through the obstacles, I guess, that stress puts in your life. And you're saying that this is important. You are calling out high achievers, saying this is something for you. I am looking at the phrasing in your about section that you said you've never felt so stressed out as you did in those years while you were in academia. And these phrases, fake it till you make it and never let them see you sweat. It's interesting that you put those two phrases right next to each other, because that really reinforces this. I'm right there with you, experiencing it like I'm watching a movie of your life or something, the way that you put those two phrases together, because fake it till you make it. Well, okay, we can do that. I can do that. And then also never let them see you sweat is kind of this underlying feeling that just, that's the danger zone for the fake it till you make it, I think, a little bit. So what was what got you into this, and what actually turned your path from study to wanting to help other people?
Sure. So it's interesting that you brought up those two quotes. And I want to offer that actually the fake it till you make it is really not a good one either. Because what happened is that I kept faking it and I kept making it, but I never felt like I arrived. So it just created like I had to just keep faking it each time until I burned out. Because it's that very idea of being like you're not really being yourself and you have to pretend to be somebody else so that other people will accept you creates a lot of stress. And so that's what I was
Mm.
finding in academia. Nobody could be vulnerable or express their fears, their stressors, their overwhelm. So for anybody listening, I got to tell you, if you don't know anything about academia and you think you live in a society where there's not enough jobs for you, try academia sometimes. There's even less jobs in academia. So it's a lot of scarce resources. Um,
Mm.
and so I really get, if you're listening and you feel like this scarcity feeling of like, I need to survive, I need to find a job, I need to be able to prove myself. And it's like we're driven by that fear, right? Because if we fail, we're not going to have any money and we're going to end up in a van down by the river, to quote an old Chris Farley SNL skit. That drives us. And not just high achievers, human beings. Like human beings, we are mammals. This is what I mean by the science side of things, is that the
Okay.
science part has to do with evolutionary biology and how we have evolved to survive. That we're always needing, we either feel safe or unsafe in any given moment.
Are you a LinkedIn user? If you are, you can join me for LinkedIn Live Audio with Elizabeth every week, usually on Mondays at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. I will have a LinkedIn Live Audio where we talk about podcasting for executives who speak and podcasting for team leaders who speak. These are the themes that are currently running. If that sounds like something you're interested, visit me, Elizabeth Walker at Work, on my LinkedIn profile.
Like that's it. Going back to the one cell amoeba all the way up to us, every biological system or organism is constantly checking to see, am I safe or not, am I safe or not, am I safe or not. And the simplest thing that I really found is that when I learned about that, when I learned about the nervous system, when I learned about evolutionary biology, when I learned about neuroplasticity and how we develop our patterns, that's when I realized that it turns out we all have an operating system, our physiology, that's designed to be scared all the time unless we can create safety. And the other part of it is that as mammals, this is a mammal thing, not just a human thing. We find safety in numbers. So what does that mean? That means we're always scared that we don't belong. Always. And that goes to 550 million years of evolution. This is not just something that, oh, well, if you're sitting around being scared of other people and what they might think of you, you should stop doing that. It's like you can't stop doing that. That's hardwired.
Hmm.
And so when I understood that, it was such a huge difference for me and for all the people that I help, that I speak to, because the light bulb turns on that it's like, if you feel like your fear of failing is a weakness, it's not. It's actually a smart
Hmm.
evolutionary adaptation. You will always be scared of not fitting in. And it's not a permanent way of being. It's just basically there's going to be certain moments where you are in where something's happening around you. I don't know, somebody sends you an email, the boss says, "Come see me right now." Let's just
Mhm.
say.
Right.
And that is going to trigger a response of, "Oh no, what did I do? Am I about to lose my job?"
Yeah, be ready.
And right? So we're just gonna be triggered anytime we sense that we might not belong. And so if you're in an environment like I was in academia, where there's a lot of competition and no vulnerability, like nobody willing to admit their fears, their anxieties, their stress, their overwhelm, and you're feeling it and you're thinking, "Oh my God, it's just me. There's something wrong with me." Everybody else is feeling it too, but then nobody could come together and support each other because we're sitting there thinking it's a personal weakness and
Mhm.
not realizing, oh, we're all feeling this, and this is part of how we're supposed to be.
Right. You know what? I just realized that you said that feeling like not being yourself creates a lot of stress, and I I never get tired of listening to folks who are coming to the table who are in have a science background, because it is interesting how if you are someone who is a high achiever, or maybe you have built some patterns where um, the security is to constantly be ready for something, which is kind of like a constant state of stress. But as you said, that's your one way that some of us create a sense of safety. I'm always doing something. I'm always working towards something. That's the safety, right? For some of
Mm-hmm.
us. I'm obviously speaking for myself. But you're like living in a constant state of stress, and you're saying, okay, this is an evolutionary thing. And I hear your words. It makes sense. I am paying closer attention because you have the science behind it, and that's interesting and helpful. However, it's like it seems as though this takes some work and some training to remind ourselves that um,
Yes,
I'm in an
yeah,
arbitrary state of stress all the time, and I forget.
right. Because guess what? So our physiology is designed to keep us alive. So you're alive right now, Elizabeth. I am alive right now. And listener, you are alive right now. Yay, us! Our physiology that
Yeah.
has been saying, "Watch out. Don't get kicked out of the pack," is working because we're still here.
Right.
The thing is simply that we once we understand that triggers will always occur, the goal isn't to be like never be triggered. The goal is to learn how
Mm.
to recognize that you're triggered and work with it. And that is definitely something that I speak about. Like I do workshops and I teach people some of the things that I teach in my keynotes. You mentioned that you were looking at my website, and I have a free video that teaches you how to reset your stress in 78 seconds or less.
Mhm.
So even in the middle of a busy workday, you could be literally in the middle of presenting a talk, because I have been doing that and I have done that in the past, and I'm presenting something and I am noticing my stress is getting higher, and I use those techniques and it
No.
brings me down immediately. People can't tell. Those are some of the things that it becomes important to know. And because there's basically three steps to notice, to shift it when you notice it's happening. And I like to give,
Okay.
before I give you those three steps, I'm just going to give you an
Mhm.
example of how this works in nature by giving you a very common example. So how many, do you have any cats or dogs? Do you have any
I
pets?
have a
Okay.
yes, I have a dog.
Okay, tell me what happens. Amazon delivery comes to the door and rings the doorbell. What does the dog do?
uh, right. You thought there was a burglar at the door or something.
But what does he do? What does the dog do?
Barks.
Barks. Yes. So the doorbell is now a trigger. It's like danger, danger, danger. That puts the dog, it starts to secrete cortisol and adrenaline. Cortisol helps him or her get glucose in the blood so they can act. And the dog barks. They go into fight mode. So I have cats. What they do is they go into flight mode. They run under the bed. Either way, they're now triggered to fear danger. There is a threat, and now they've gotten into a stress response. So now what happens once the Amazon person leaves and you close the door? What happens to your dog?
Wait till they're out of sight and then everything's fine again. No barking.
Yeah. And how long does it take from the moment they are out of sight to when the dog is back to normal?
You thought nothing ever happened.
Right. But maybe like a minute at the
Yeah,
most.
right, right.
Okay. So that's what I like to people to get is that the dog is going to get triggered. The cat's going to get triggered. You're going to get triggered. But what if, like the dog and the cat, you can tell when the threat is not there and you get back to it within a minute. That's how you work with it. And so what happens with animals, I'm going to give the example of let me use the example of your dog, say, because I did used to have a dog. And what happens then is the dog is barking because there is a threat, a perceived threat for whatever reason, physiologically, pattern matching, a doorbell is a threat. And as long as the threat is there, like the door is open, there's a stranger outside, I see there's a weird car in the hall, in the driveway, like it keeps checking to see what's happening. Like it's listening, it's looking, it's smelling. And then once there are no more things denoting a threat, the dog will probably shake, maybe yawn, maybe stretch. Right? Does your dog do that?
Yeah.
And then it's back to normal. So here's what happens. The dog is checking if it's a real threat. First of all, they stay and they're paying attention. Is this really, I like to use the metaphor, is this really a tiger about to eat me? And as long as it looks as like there's still signs pointing to this could be a tiger, it's going to stay at a higher stress level. There's still going to be those hormones kicking in. But because they're paying attention, as soon as the threat is no longer there, they're no longer hearing or seeing or smelling or sensing a threat, they have to shake out those stress hormones. They have to release them, because when we have stress hormones in our body, the cortisol, the adrenaline, particularly cortisol, it feels really uncomfortable. And so animals, including us, we naturally know how to release hormones like that. We cry, we yawn, we shake, we do all sorts of things. Dogs and cats will scratch, they'll lick themselves. And those are the ways that animals instinctively do to release the hormones. And then because if the hormones stay in the body never feels safe. And that's by design. Because you want to imagine, like, what would it be like if you were, say you're a deer out in somewhere in the savannah, and you're asleep with other deer, and a tiger comes lurking. Now the deer is asleep, but it senses some kind of movement that it's been learned. And then it starts to secrete these stress hormones. But those stress hormones don't feel uncomfortable. What's going to happen to that deer? It's not going to wake up and it's going to get eaten. So the stress hormones have to feel uncomfortable for them to work. Right?
That makes sense.
Yeah, so we are the descendants of all the animals before us who had a good operating system that's like, hey, I sense a danger, I'm going to secrete these stress hormones and they're going to feel horrible, so they get your attention. So having said that, I want to tell you then what the steps are for human beings.
Okay.
And it's basically the same stuff that animals do, except we have to add an extra step because of our brain tries to stress us out. Like the dogs and the cats, they don't have a prefrontal cortex. They're just present. We will stress ourselves out more by thinking. Ever notice how you could be lying in bed stressed out and freaked out? Literally no tiger there. It's just you in bed.
Oh yeah.
Right. So our brain acts like a sixth sense, in addition to the five senses that can tell us there's danger. Our thoughts are almost like a sixth sense that will work like a trigger, like that danger bell that then gets our hormones running of like, well, shoot, what if I don't know what to say tomorrow? Ding. Oh my God, I'm behind. Ding. Like every single one is like a stressor, a stressor, a stressor. So our thoughts are stressors too. So what we want to do is remember like those automatic thoughts or different things are, initially you're not going to be able to really stop them from coming. So it's not a matter of I shouldn't think that because that's a stressor now. When you think, oh, I shouldn't think that thing, there's something wrong with me because I'm thinking that thing.
Yes.
And that's where rumination comes in, right? Like we're so stressed out because we're ruminating that we've already forgotten about whatever the initial stressor was, the doorbell. So the first thing is just to notice, step one, A for awareness. Have awareness that you are triggered, that you are feeling the cortisol and adrenaline in your body. Okay. Because it's happening unconsciously all the time. And the key is that we cannot interrupt it or stop it or work with it, whatever we want to do, unless you even know it's happening. So that's one of the things that I do teach people in my keynotes and in my workshops. It's like how to tell when you're triggered because it's in the body. It's not going to be in your head. So then step two is B for body. So we had A for awareness. Now we're going to go B for body. And B for body simply means release the cortisol. And so one of the things, and that's how you reset the body, right? You reset the body. So it's like the same thing that the animals do when they shake or yawn or scream or cry. For us, the best stress reset when you are really worked up is to cry. But I know that our society has conditioned us not to do it. But crying is amazing. So
Mm,
I'm not going to say go out and cry more, but if you ever feel like crying, allow yourself to do it because the
mm,
cortisol comes out in the tears. The adrenaline is released because you're sobbing, and it also secretes more oxytocin,
mm.
which is that love hormone. And oxytocin basically uh I'm trying to think of the right word. It basically negates cortisol. So when
Oh.
you have oxytocin, your cortisol drops, right?
Oh.
So crying is great. And then there's all sorts of other things that I teach about. But if you do the 78-second stress reset, you're going to learn 3 things that will help you reset your stress fast. And it's all physiological. It's all the things that we are designed to do. So once you do
Mm,
B for body, then there's some more things you can do. Like in general, it's going to be about naming the emotion. And that one's a little bit hard for most people
mm-hmm.
because we don't often talk about the emotions. Like we will think, well, I'm feeling that they are a jerk. There is no emotion. There is no, if it's got a sentence, it's not an emotion because an emotion is a single word thing. But if you can be like,
Oh.
I feel upset because I think he's a jerk, that's different than saying I feel that he's a jerk.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I'm laughing because I have I guess that's my first natural reaction is to giggle when I feel like I'm connecting with you on something, but it's I'm not trying to make fun of it. Yes, that is really fascinating what you just said there. So if it has a sentence or if you can make a sentence out of it, it's not an emotion. Is
Right,
that kind
right.
of
But
what you
there's a
said?
reason we want to name the emotion because that releases it. That helps to release it more. Because
Okay, so yes, those are
yeah.
really two different distinctions. So I'm familiar and sort of comfortable with talking about this idea of, okay, let's recognize and name the emotion. And as you just said, that's not easy to do. Furthermore, if you can say a whole sentence around it, that's worth noting maybe that so you are the one with the vocabulary here. I'm struggling for words. So what is it about being able to form a full sentence? Is it just you're being too like analytical or something? You're really not identifying the emotion and doing anything productive with it? What is it about being able to
Well, so naming having a sentence it's like, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just trying to make the distinction that that's not going to release your stress. That's probably going to trigger more.
so it's right. So what I
It's like a
guess I'm trying
practical
to
thing,
it's like
right?
the putting it
It,
into
it becomes
words
a
is more
rumination.
ruminating. Yes.
So if I say, I feel that he's a jerk because he did this and da da da, da, and but you don't name the emotion, that becomes a trigger. It becomes like a complaint. And
Yeah. Okay.
complaining tends to trigger more. It becomes another little bell of like, they're such jerks and they never listen and da da da. Right. So if I thought that was going to help you with your stress, I'd be like, yes, complain away. And I used to, because I used to be a big complainer. I mean, I'm not some saint here who always knew how to do this. This is something that I've learned really in the past 3.5 years and that I now teach people. But it's simply understanding, like, so for me, I'm really practical. It's like, if it works, do it. I have found the things that work. I found the science that explains why it works. It has worked on every single person I help. And so then for me, it's like, that's why, and that's why I say what I say. And it's just paying attention, because you can feel what it feels like if we say sentences about our thoughts about something that's bothering us, but we never say the emotion, we feel worse. Yeah, they are a
Mm.
jerk. Oh my God, they're such, whatever. AHs.
Oh, right. Okay.
But if we say the emotion, like, the emotion is a lot harder to say, simply because we have not been taught. We have been taught not to mention emotions because they're a sign of weakness, right? But
Hmm.
the thing that's crazy is that's why for me it's like, when I just go down to the science about it, and that what really helped me is recognizing this is not a personal flaw that I have an emotion. It's what I'm designed to do. I am designed to be sad at times. When something happens, cats and dogs will be sad when sad things happen, and they express their sadness, they express their anger, they express their fear. And it is in expressing it that they get through it faster and get back to it.
Hmm.
And that's what we're designed to. So it's not about being necessarily like it's really just, my whole thing is like really helping people get that there's science, and it's practical. The science of understanding how your emotions work, how your operating system works, how your physiology works.
Hey, listeners, don't forget to subscribe to email if you haven't already. Do this at dearbusinesscoachpodcast.com. And if you are a new subscriber, look for the magazine coming up. You can get a free download as a new subscriber. That's dearbusinesscoachpodcast.com. Thanks so much, and I hope you're having a fantastic day. Remember, you are a superstar.
When you can get, it is not a personal weakness that I feel this way, I'm supposed to. And it's not
Mhm.
even because all humans do, but because all mammals do, and because all animals feel this way. There's a certain kind of relief. Like, it's like, oh, let's just work with the operating system. It turns out these emotions, they're not bugs in the operating system, they're features of survival. And I'm going to learn to work with them. Instead of resisting, avoiding, denying they're there, I'm just going to work with them so I can get on and be my badass self doing what I want to do. Like that's really my attitude about it.
Yeah, well, and okay, so this phrasing again as great bug, it's not a bug in the operating system, because where that it is really easy to feel that if I'm having an emotion, does this at work or in a work related situation, of course it doesn't have to be at work, maybe even more so important when maybe it's
Absolutely.
anywhere else,
Yeah.
but the and how so it's having the emotion can feel to me sometimes like I am losing control, and that losing control is frustrating, because as you say, you feel you have to fit in, be a certain way, or it's not socially acceptable, and so that feels like a bug in the operating system. Oh no, something's
Yes.
wrong with me too. On top of all this.
Yes, that you nailed it. Exactly, Elizabeth. Like that's the cycle we get stuck in. So, we feel a natural emotion, and that's one trigger that if we were like the dog or the cat and they heard the doorbell and then the person left, once the trigger escapes, then we can feel better within a minute or 5 minutes. The reason it lasts so long is that we have been programmed by society. So I like to say there's the operating system, which is you cannot override that. You're supposed to have emotions and you're supposed to express them so you get rid of the cortisol and the adrenaline. Like that's the bottom line. But now we have this societal programming that says, oh, by the way, you're not allowed to express those emotions that the operating system demands you express.
Right.
Right. And so it's so fascinating because they work against each other. And but the goal here is then the more I and you and all of us educate people on, oh, look, this is actually how it works. Am I willing to just simply notice when I'm upset and instead of ruminating for 2 weeks, ruminate for one when I notice and recognize, oh, look, I've been ruminating. I've been stressing myself out thinking about this. And then
Mm.
we can maybe what I can do instead of ruminating, because rumination, again, is a sentence, it doesn't say an emotion, to be able to say, I was really hurt when they didn't call me, when I didn't get
Mm.
the promotion, or I was really angry when I went to that meeting and they cut me off and they didn't let me speak. And I didn't want to say anything because I was afraid I would get so mad or I would cry or something.
Mhm.
There's something like when we can admit that, and again, you don't go admit it to somebody who's unsafe. That's another part of it about being a
Mhm.
mammal, is you got to know who your pack is. So it's not about you just tell anybody, but you have to find who are the people who can basically validate your thoughts and your emotions without trying to change you or tell you you're wrong or try to fix you or try to fix them or whatever. But that's another part of what I teach, what I coach on, what I speak on, what I do workshops. It's knowing who is a safe pack member.
Mm.
And you don't need a lot of them. You just need a couple. But when you know who those are, and again, this is part of being a mammal, is we need packs to help co-regulate us, and we co-regulate them, you know? So it's about the more we can shift our mindset and our attitude toward emotions as being simply things that want to be named and witnessed and validated, when we can do that, they pass. And then
Mm.
they do. Like you just like when you can witness, name it, validate it, you feel better. You feel better. And then suddenly the cortisol and the adrenaline releases, your prefrontal cortex comes back online, and then you're like, oh, okay, I feel better. Now I can think about how I want to deal with that thing originally. So it's actually like a super simple thing. But like you said, Elizabeth, it's hard to remember it and it takes practice. And there's ways in which I help people with that. But the one thing that I would say is if you can just take away from today is that your emotions are not a sign that there's something wrong with you. They're a sign there's something working right with you. And it's not anything to be ashamed of. It's actually, they're trying to protect you. And when you can learn to work with them, you will stress less and you will create better communities, better teams, and a better life.
Have the reset your stress in 78 seconds. So I'm on susiehansley.com, and that is a place where I can put in my email address and my name, and that looks about as simple as it is.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Okay, very good. All right. So, and let's see. Oh, it's 10:09 already. So before I let you go, let me make sure that I tell people also to get in touch with you. This looks like the best thing to do is get your free resource first.
Sure, you can do that, or just go to my website. There are two different buttons on that will either lead you, if you're interested in coaching. I do still take some limited clients for one-on-one coaching. You can click on that button. And if you want to know more about how I can help your business or your team or your organization as a speaker and a workshop facilitator, you click that button and then you'll get everything you need from that page, as well as a way to contact me.
This is a really nice website. It's really easy. I know exactly where to go and what to click on.
Oh, good. I try.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. Okay, well, I'm out of time. And so I know you have people to help and people who are waiting for you. Okay, well, Dr. Susie, I know that we are going to talk again soon. And so thank you so much for being here today. I hope you have a fantastic week. More to come.
You too. And everyone, have a beautiful day, week, life moment that you're in. And just know you're not alone. You are awesome. And your stress is not a sign there's anything wrong with you. It's a sign that there's something right, and we can work with it.
Nice. Mhm.
Thank you so much for joining me today. My name's Elizabeth in Floyd, Virginia. This has been an episode of Dear Business Coach.